No.
Okay.
He said perfectly, I think. Okay.
Yeah, they do all the same last Friday.
He was absolutely, I thought was good.
So you.
All right, everybody, good evening. We're gonna go ahead and get started. Councilmember Back is a couple minutes behind, but he's on his way, but we're gonna go ahead and get started anyway, okay? So I'd like to call to order September 2024 special council meeting. Next is the verbal roll call of council members present for the record.
Councilmember Back, Councilmember Cooper. Here. Councilmember Joy.
President.
Councilmember Perkins.
President.
Councilmember Sexton. Vice Mayor Atkins.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Present. Before we continue on, I'll just want to pass on to you that council member Sexton has recused herself. That's why you don't see her tonight. She's not even in the building. So we're going to move forward without her this evening, okay? All right, the purpose of tonight's meeting is for the council members and the public to meet and ask questions of the two finalists for the village manager position. Pete Sexton, who's on the left with the blue shirt and tie, and Steve Wolf with the black coat and tie and the pink shirt. The council will go first. Each council member will be allowed to ask two questions of the candidates. Both candidates will answer the question that is asked. Once all the council members have asked their questions, the public will be allowed to come to the podium and ask one question. Once the public has asked all their questions, we will adjourn the meeting and allow the council and public to informally interact with the two candidates. Council will take no action for this meeting tonight. Okay? We will begin with the council questions for the two village managers candidates. Before we start, I'd like each of you to take a moment and briefly tell us your name, relevant experience, and why you want to be the next village manager. Mr. Sexton, we'll start with you, please, sir.
My name is Peter W. Sexton Jr. I live at 180 Parkview Drive, New Lebanon. A little bit of history because I started out my career helping the youth of this county. I've been doing it for about 25 years. Still doing that. Still in a very good place doing that. Happy with my current position doing that. Have a great team doing that. This kind of came about. I seen it as a new opportunity, a new challenge. I thought I'd put my name in the hat and see if I can help this community.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And Mr. Wolf, please, sir.
My name is Stephen A. Wolf. I've started in public service 40 years ago as an EMT and a firefighter for the village of Phillipsburg. And I've served in some capacity in public service ever since. I've spent my time, went to college at Wright State University, and we can get to that later. And also, I've served in township administrator role. I also served on the state board of trustees, which I worked as their party that went out and helped struggling government entities improve themselves, correct themselves, or get through difficult times. And that's how I ended up. My last position was at Jefferson Township next door. I was asked to go there and help them. So public service has been my life. I was teary-eyed in the parking lot because my wife put my dad's fire chief's badge in my pocket. He died a line of duty death back some 20 years ago at the village of Phillipsburg. And so if I'm seeing a little emotional, I'm still getting over what my wife did. She said, he'll always be with you. And my entire family have always been in public service because I think no matter what you do professionally, you need to help the people.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, We will start with council questions, and we'll start off with Councilmember Cooper. You're first, sir.
Good to meet both of you. And for both of you, you may or may not be aware of how much you know about the village and its current staffing issues. But there are certain departments that are in need of personnel, qualified personnel to fill positions. In your capacity that you either now serve in or have served in, how has your number one, employee retention been? Number two, how have you been as far as acquiring new talent? And as a part of that, do you have a strategy or have you given much thought of how you would draw new talent to offer their services to the village?
You want to stay in the same order?
If it's same order,
I can start off. This is gonna come across, that question actually is one of my strengths. That's what I do now. In my 24 years, when I was first hired on with the juvenile court, I was hired by a director. Shortly after that director resigned. The next director promoted me to supervisor. That director passed away. The next filling director promoted me to manager. That director went on to fill another role. The next director that came in monetarily promoted me as manager as we were going through some changes. We were going through where our old facilities were located, which was 2 cottages at the fairgrounds, to the new facility, which is on Infirmary Road next to District 7, the sheriff's office. So during that time, we were going through all kinds of new accreditations, COA, Council on Accreditation, so we could become a quality residential treatment program, ODJF licensures, all that type of stuff. I just got done doing that today. I was just putting 8 hours with ODJFS going through policies, procedures, thousands of pieces of paperwork. So I just finished that exit interview at 4:50 p.m.
okay.
With that said, in a position like that, working with different directors, you have judge turnover, you have court administrator turnover. So I think when you look at my resume, it looks kind of blank. It looks kind of bland. Yeah, I've had 2 jobs since I was 18. So that's what, 32 years. When I left the job as I was working through college to go to start my career, I was a supervisor there when I left. So the leadership skills, they speak for themselves as far as on paper. In the time there, especially as a manager, an upper level manager, building teams is a must. So I oversee 33 people and I oversee everything. Basically, operations manager overseeing the 24/7 operation. Team of 4 supervisors, probation officers, youth specialists under them, a kitchen crew, and then a facilities crew. So in the time of building those crews, if building those teams and retaining those teams, if I didn't have the ability to do that and the ability to build quality teams and have quality people, I wouldn't have lasted 24 years. It wouldn't have happened. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's kind of, this is going to come out harsh. If you can't do it, we'll find somebody that can. And sometimes that's the way it is. And in some positions, in some places, you get it done or you move on. And we'll find somebody that can. So I've been doing it since 2009. I am the one that does it. Don't get me wrong, I write a recommendation. My director has to sign off on it. There's times where she may want to do a formal second interview, or they may want to do, they trust in my process. And then there's a recommendation to the court for hire, those types of things. But I've been building teams that provide structure, consistency, and accountability for 15 plus years.
Yeah, same question to you, sir.
In all my capacities that I've served in public service, I've been involved or been in charge of HR. In my 12 years as trustee, I took care of all the health benefits, the to job descriptions, managing and making sure that we as an employer are correct in our offerings. So your employee trusts you. The other thing is in small government, you want to retain as much of the person, not because of just the pay. You want them to understand and invest in why they're there, and they'll stay longer. The studies show that. So in my last job, as I was hired, they didn't explain to me fully, but it's no one's fault. I stepped in and I had no fire chief, no road superintendent. I had one missing trustee, and the road department consisted of one person. You can imagine the struggles that they have next door with finances and all the other issues you hear about, but then on top of it, you have no one working. A fire department that was functioning with 18 people with the call volume per capita bigger than Dayton per capita. I took it apart and said, it isn't just me, it's going to be the department managers that I hire. We're going to make sure that they know coming in all the facts, not hidden facts, or we'll tell you about the good stuff later. I put it right out there with the leadership and say, we've got to make sure our house is in order as we hire. And that way, when we meet with each employee, potential employee, they fully understand what their job is before they come aboard. If we're going to invest in you, you have to invest in us. But the trust has to be there. So we were able to grow the fire department to over 65 members in a matter of my 7 years there, all part-time almost. But we were able to add 3 full-time paramedic positions there through levies and passing levies. All that is a big aggregate of problem, not just hiring someone. The other thing is in this area, and people know this, people do follow others. Not to say that someone's following Pete to work here or Steve Wolf, but sometimes they'll give a small community a chance to come to work instead of the big city. And that opportunity can come because you're involved and already involved and spent your time in that realm of public service and built the reputation that could bring the people here. Now, Pete has the same struggles that I had next door. You can't guarantee that you're going to have the people walk through. But you also have the relationships with the city managers, the township administrators, and the trustees around the county that says, do you have somebody ready to step up? Somebody to recommend? And almost always you come up with at least 1 or 2 or 3 that might be interested. But the biggest thing I would bring to you folks is the fact is, let's look at the people you already have. Where are the strengths? Where are our weaknesses? And then that's upon what you use to recruit. Because if you don't, you mesh a problem together, it may look good on paper, but a couple of years from now, the Afghan begins to fade away. So I spend my time with the people. And the first thing I would do is, if you would ask us, hire me, is to meet with every employee individually to find out where the weaknesses or successes are. Because you better bet they talk to their friend that works at Brookville or they work in Dayton and they know about all the benefits they receive. There's no reason why you can't be right in that hiring area.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Next question I have, and you touched on it a little bit, Mr. Wolf, is something that's important, I know to the village, is very important to me personally, is the idea of openness and transparency. And I would just, by way of a question, how important is transparency to you, particularly in the function of a village manager? Now you're governed by certain laws, confidentiality wise, but within the parameters of those laws, how open and transparent do you intend to be? And I'll just preface this, I'll kind of give you a cheat answer. I really believe we could be as open and transparent as legally possible.
I do believe he did touch on it. I think it's highly important, and I think it's at the top of the list to be transparent. When I say he touched on it, I think when he said meeting with the people that we currently have, I think that is utterly important. And I think that's part of the transparency. I have a little thing, finding the right people. to hire is kind of most difficult. But once you can find those people, or you find the people within, getting the buy-in to me is not. I think I can get the buy-in. I think I can be transparent, because I think once people are around me and touch and see and feel, they're like, oh,
Yeah,
this guy is doing this for the right reasons.
yeah.
He's got a good heart. He cares about the community. He cares about the employees. And I think that's kind of the best answer I can give you is
Okay.
that hands-on approach. I'm a very hands-on style manager. I have to see it, feel it, touch it, with you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Wolf?
Through my experience, including my last employment, but other employment with other communities that I've worked for, there have been at least one open sunshine law violation or case that has come forward. And in almost every instance is because of that lack of transparency. So my last opportunity I got there, they weren't posting any minutes. They were 3.5 years behind of posting public minutes.
Okay.
The trust goes right away.
Yeah.
It goes away with you, the leaders. Then your employees are gonna follow right along. And then the public out here begin to get mistrusting. When a lot of times it's a snowball effect and it shouldn't be that way. There's always a disagreement. Everybody here has a different opinion of, an issue. You're gonna disagree. But the thing is, as long as all the facts are on the table and you're doing all that you can to share the information, you can't do any more than that. But when you don't share, or you're short, if the attorneys allow you to speak it, you're doing harm to everyone that's involved in this process.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mayor, thank you.
Mr. Perkins, for your 2 questions, please.
From what you know about Mr. Sexton, from what you know about the village, what do you think will be the biggest challenge for you to move this village onward?
I think he touched on it a little bit. Getting teams in place, getting the right people in place. And I keep speaking about it because it's so important in what I do right now. We have a team of 3 people, and everybody knows their role and has their role and can cross over roles and those types of things. I think the most difficult thing for me is flipping over my language. I think I said this in the last interview or when I was with the other 3 council members, is I've been in a language of ORC codes with ODJFS and COA accreditations and those types of policies, procedures, our types of policies and procedures. So I think just flipping my brain over and these charters and ORC codes, it's nothing I can't learn. It's nothing I can't figure out. It's nothing I can't do. It's just going to be when you've been doing something and speaking a certain language for 24 years, you've got to be able to flip it and learn new things. And I think that's going to be my biggest challenge.
Okay. Second question, Mr. Sexton. Are you the person who's going to run the village, 7 days a week? Not the mayor, not the council members? You're going to be the one running the village, correct? To see everything goes right.
I would, yes. I mean, I know there's certain things that I would have to run through council, but when you say run it, what do you mean run it?
The daily, the.
Like, am I available? Am I?
You got to see about the police department, the fire department.
Yes, answer calls, those types of things. Yeah, I think that just comes with the territory. Sorry, I didn't know which way you were going with that.
Yeah.
I think that's a given. It comes with the territory. It's kind of my position now. We're 24/7 operations. In order to be sitting right here, I had to put in a call, text, and say, hey, from 5:30 to 8:30, you're going to have to contact the director. I'm not going to be available. If anything arises, if a youth runs away, if the police have to come out, if there's something that happens, I'm not available right now for these 3 hours. So Monday through Friday, I'm 24/7 right now. That's who they call. I'm the person that happens. And then every 4th weekend, I am on call. So
What about the weekends?
every fourth weekend with my current position, I am on call.
Okay. I left one department out, the service department. So you'd be responsible for that too. Because they're shorthanded now.
Yes, police, fire, and service, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Wolf, what do you know about the village of New Lebanon?
Number one, it's a town of what I call my sweet spot. What I mean is your population is right in that range where you're not a city, but you're not a struggling village. I drove through here for 7 years going to Jefferson because I used Brookville, Johnsville to go to work. But years ago, as an insurance agent, I insured many of your businesses that were in town, including the same building at 35 and right there where the Napa Auto Store, I had that insured, and then it became Sutton Plumbing. And so I look back on my book of business that I used to have, and I had about 75 homeowners in the town insured. So I was here regularly. I knew the Pefleys back in the day, back in the 60s, 70s, great basketball player and then coach at Dixie High School. And so we kept relationships there. I've run mutual aid fire calls here, including when your sewer plant caught fire, had a chemical fire years ago. And I was here for a good number of times. Being in the fire service myself for over 30 years, we always work together on this western side. The villages do. Case in point, in an earlier interview, I mentioned we went together and put a trailer together called the Western Trench Rescue. Phillipsburg, Brookville, Farmersville, New Lebanon. And that trailer sat here for years. And it had all the equipment in it to be able to go get somebody out of a trench. A few years ago, somebody died in a trench building a home in Perry Township, Northern Park, near Westbrook. That kind of cooperation is why I feel I know what you are about here. I've known previous mayors, previous fire chiefs. I've watched in the paper and learned what I could about the community. Yes, you have spots open, as he mentioned earlier, but this is a great opportunity for this community to grow the right way, and everyone grow together. And I think this is what I feel like is the best opportunity that you can have, and you've got it right in front of you.
Thank you. Steve. What makes you the best candidate for this position?
I think you compare two different people, and it's hard to compare the two. Pete has great years of experience. We were sharing some comments here before our interview started. I think he would be a good candidate, good selection as well. On my side of it is I grew up knowing how to build teams. I learned how to run and be involved in communities that have limited funds. And how do you do the most with those funds that you have? It was not an easy chore to last 7 years. I was the longest administrator ever in history of Jefferson Township. That's not bragging. But I must have done some things right to stay there that long. I got them out of debt, got them out of state receivership, but not just me. It's a team. I bring to you the ability to work with every one of you and hopefully even structure what you as a council member knows what your duties are to its best ability, as well as educate the community about how a village runs. Because a lot of times you hear interference of cities did this, villages did this, they did this in the township. Well, why aren't we doing it here? Well, instead of just saying it's never been done that way, or we don't have the funding to do it, I want to put myself out there as your leader to explain to them and hold sessions if we need to educate about what goes on at the table up there. It's important because you have a job to do and you're elected to represent these folks and yourselves as residents. Your job is to make the right decisions. As long as the public at least understands what you're doing, they're not always going to agree with you. I mentioned that earlier. But what I do is I bring the ability to communicate to people and not afraid to talk to the most difficult people possible. Because you never know where there's a sunshine versus rain. But if you don't go to the, as I always say, I use these euphemisms, if you don't go to the goal line, you're never gonna score a touchdown. If you stay at the 20-yard line, you might kick a field goal. Put yourself at that goal line as leaders, and your entire team will go across the line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I just want to say, I thank him for saying what he said about me, and I think that cooperation, it is different. He has obviously cooperation with council, villages. Mine's a little different. You know, mine's been within the juvenile court and, you know, with children's services, Ohio Department of Job and Family Services, Montgomery County Sheriffs, HOW. It's a different form of cooperation, but I've been able to work alongside of him for, you know, 2.5 decades. And it's different, 2 different types.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Perkins. Mr. Beck?
I have no questions.
No questions.
Because, when I sat in at the meeting, so
Okay.
I'll let it go.
Mr. Joy?
Thank you for coming in. I just want to say that I don't actually understand why we're here. Simply because the people that terminated our past manager are the ones that asked you guys to come in. So in the words of Mr. McNamee, I'm going to say that the fix is in. So one of you is their pick. So, and the only question that I really want to ask you is, do you have legal counsel? Because you're going to want them to really look at your contract, because they don't have a problem with breaking contracts here.
That's all. Would either one of you like to respond to that, or it's up to you?
No.
No, okay. Thank you, Mr. Joy. Vice Mayor Atkins?
I do have a couple questions.
I do want to respond, actually.
Okay.
I do want to respond. I'm actually offended because now that I hear what you're saying, you're accusing one of us of being untransparent, unprofessional.
No, I'm not.
Yeah,
I'm not.
you said
Please, let him
fix it.
speak, please.
You did say that. You just accused one of us of being a liar.
I did not.
That's what I heard.
Exactly.
I actually want I'm gonna say something else off before I say a question, okay? I really want to thank Steve for being transparent. And if anybody really wants to know, Steve was one that was approached by Glenna prior to this and actually did not have to notify us or tell us what was going on. So I really want to say that I do feel that was offensive, that you can't say somebody's a pick, but I do want to say thank you, Steve, for being honest. I do appreciate that. And I actually got a couple questions. One, I just want clarification. We had more than one, we had 3 people when we started, okay? But I am one that does background searches. And one of the other candidates that was on there, we found out he had prostitution. So that's why he's not here, I'll be honest. But on you, I noticed that, Steve, that you had a lawsuit with Jefferson Township. Can you explain that, please?
Yes, I can. When you trust an employer to pay you the correct amount or compensation based on your contract, you trust them. So you don't look and second guess every single time. When we put budgets together over there for the 7 years, I made sure that everything was budgeted for all salaried staff, including empty positions, to make sure that there wasn't a money issue at the end of the year where you couldn't pay your staff or go into the first and second months of the year waiting on your first disbursement from the county. Well, I didn't discover this. The state of Ohio state auditors did 5 straight forensic audits on Jefferson and not agreed upon procedures as you are used to here. The very first one, they brought up the fact that I wasn't being paid my PERS, public employee retirement money, or the time credited for me. And I was hired as a PERS contract, a person in my contract. Irregardless, that is against the law. So for the next number of successive forensic audits, it was repeated that this wasn't done. The fiscal officer refused to do so. It was being deducted from my check, but not paid to the state of Ohio. So when my contract ended, I struggled. I want all of you to know this, whether you hire Pete or myself. I struggled with the fact is I've never done that to a public employer or any employer, because that isn't what I am about. I knew it would cause problems for me trying to get a public jobs in the future, but I had no legal recourse. And as of today, I'm still at least 2 years not paid. There's been no attempt to do so. And they've now changed fiscal officer positions over there. So it's getting even tougher. But I had no recourse. And I discussed it with even Matt Heck downtown, his professional advice. And he said, you have to do what you have to do sometimes, but it's not fun. And so this is on my record. Yes, it is. But that particular lawsuit has been pulled back. But I still am owed what an employee is owed. And that's what most of that lawsuit was about.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And then, in our charter, it says that they're supposed to live in New Lebanon. Do you plan to move to New Lebanon?
I can do so. I do live on a 6th generation farm that I live on that goes back that many years, and it's very difficult. I would like to have that as an opportunity to discuss with council if you were to offer a job to me. When the city of Dayton years ago went along with the state of Ohio where they said it was no longer enforceable, the city of Dayton took that out of their charter. I'm not asking you to do anything special for me. I will confront that issue when or if that opportunity comes aboard. But I only live right around 20. Today I measured it was under 20 miles north of here, right up Brookville, Johnsville Road, Arlington Road, and right off of Arlington, just north of Brookville. So it never came into play in my 7 years at Jefferson because I was here in 20 minutes. Technology today, you could be farther away than that. But when that tornado hit, for instance, on Memorial Day, the first thing I did is got in a car and drove all the roads of Jefferson first. And then once we were okay on south of 35, I went back to the city of Brookville and represented Clay Township for 36 straight hours, doing whatever I could with the village and the problems that they had there. So proximity is not a problem to me. But if that is a sticking point, then I don't have an answer today.
Okay.
But that's just where I'm at.
Okay, thank you.
You're
I
welcome.
do appreciate it. And then, Pete, what do you think is the most need of New Lebanon that if you became manager, what would you think is the most needed that we would need to do?
Well, I'm gonna kind of cheat because I have your answers from last time. I know that was one of my questions, or what I thought was important to council, and I think I got answers like the water and sewer, the infrastructure, roads, those types of things were definitely 1A and 1B, if I do remember correctly. I don't really think that's hard to argue. I think the, if I remember correctly, came up, the courthouse seemed to be a topic of conversation.
Okay. I don't have another question for you, because I guess otherwise they'll.
Okay, I do not have any questions either for you two guys. I'm sure you heard about me elaborate when we met previously, so I'll go ahead and skip my question as well, okay? At this time, I will give the public an opportunity to come to the podium and ask a question, one question. And the two candidates, before you ask a question, please state your name and address for the record. I have 4 signatures on this request sheet. Is there any more that did not sign that would like to come up? Okay, I'll just point at you when it's time. Anybody else? No? Okay, first one is Darla Eds, 670 Homeway Drive.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Albert Dennis, 407 Rosetta. You're good? Well, this is easy. Teresa Cooper, 443 Hazelhurst.
Teresa Cooper, 443 Hazelhurst. Mr. Sexton, I really appreciate all that you have done for Nicholas Residential. I don't think the public realizes how difficult. I work for Montgomery County Children's Services placements and invoicing. And when I ask for an AWOL information, I get it within like 5 minutes. I do not have another provider that does it. I can't say enough about how you have handled the kids there, and you get some of the roughest kids in our county. So I really appreciate that. Mr. Wolf, why did you leave Jefferson Township?
My contract ended and an election had occurred prior to that time. And the new leaders that came in, majority leaders wanted to go a different direction. At that time that I left, I was working 5 positions. They wouldn't replace the former trustees, didn't replace the road superintendent, the office manager, HR, the the zoning and the code enforcement, and then myself as the administrator. I was doing all 5 jobs for the township, saving them nearly $200,000 of salary a year unasked. They just did it. So every time they lost someone they went to a new job, I ended up doing more and more. And so when I left, their idea was they replaced me with 5 full-time people. So in a nutshell, to answer your question, my contract ended. There was no discipline. My file shows no discipline at Jefferson at all through my 7 years. Not even a single write-up or derogatory statement. It was a leadership change, and the leadership wanted new people that they chose to be.
So you don't have a problem then if leadership changes and your contract ends and you say goodbye and that's good, right?
Well, you don't want to lose your job.
No.
No one wants to. I've invested my life there.
Right,
I was spending 7 days a week, 6 there, 1 day, Sunday at my house doing all the bills because I had nobody to do the bills.
right.
So to answer your question, leadership changes in communities. That's the political world.
Correct.
You can't control that or be part of it.
No.
But I was a casualty of politics.
I understand, but from what I know in this village, I know that we had a management change, but our previous village manager did not take the path that you were taking. I do appreciate that.
Right, thank you, Mr. Cooper.
Thank you.
One per
Yes, please.
Timothy Williams, 194 Lawyer. Pete, for you, how do you plan, or do you have a plan to get us out of the financial situation?
I would have to see the financial situation, and I don't know that financial situation. I mean, I wish I could give you a better answer, but I would have to see it before I could give an answer to that.
Okay, do you feel comfortable that you'll be able to do it?
I do, yeah. I mean, I've problem solved for a long time in my current position. It isn't comparing apples to apples, so that, I mean, that is what it is. But I think, it speaks for itself over 24 years. I mean, I really appreciate the comments. This is difficult. I'm sorry, I can't remember your name.
Teresa Cooper.
Thank you. When she came up and said what she said, it hits home. I've been in one place for 24 years. And that's how people at work treat me. That's how people from Children's Services treat me. That's how Montgomery County Sheriff's Department treats me. It's how Powell Board treats me. It's how ODJFS, who I just did my exit interview today, been doing relicensure stuff for 3 weeks. It's how they treat me. So I'm not leaving somewhere or thinking about it because I'm unhappy. I'll go to work tomorrow and be doing the same thing. Like I said, I seen it as an opportunity. I seen it as a new challenge. Thought about it. People in the community came up to me. It's difficult. I'll be honest, over time, I've bounced back and forth. Had people at my job say, "What are you thinking?" And I hope that doesn't come across negative. You know, what are you doing? You realize you've been here this long and you understand that you'd be gone 4 years and now you've thrown away an entire 24, 25-year career. I get that. So, doing something like this, doing what she does on a daily basis, doing what I do on a daily basis, doing this, it comes from here. That's where it comes from. If it doesn't, people will figure it out. They'll figure it out real quick. It's not hard. It has to come from here. I don't know how to say it.
I'm gonna piggyback on that. It comes from the heart. So mine is for you. I know you said you have a 60-year farm or 6th-generation farm. So my biggest thing is loyalty. That your decisions will affect New Lebanon. That should affect you as well. Why is it you can't answer today? That if you want this job, which in our charter would have to be changed by the town, that you wouldn't or would have to even think about moving to New Lebanon? What's the hesitation? If you want this job and really want to improve this town, to where it affects you as well, not to where you can go in a high tower somewhere else, that you are directly affected by whatever is chosen.
I'm gonna draw back to what I started out with you, council discussion. It's close to where my dad lost his life as a volunteer fire chief. And emotionally, I just can't commit to that. But my loyalty is whoever I work for, because my family reputation is on it. My personal reputation is on it. And at no time would I ever sacrifice that reputation for the simple, I don't want to answer your question. Emotionally, I am close to where my father is or was, and that is where I'd like to stay. If I need to rent an apartment or something like that, I'm all about it. I'm all about it, but I don't want to skirt the law. I want to do what's right. Integrity is number one for me. And I couldn't have survived wherever I've been in all my difficult situations of who I've worked for without integrity and following the law. If you don't have integrity, you have nothing. And I hope that I can come here and instill that in everyone that is here and become infectious. But to go back to your answer, it's the emotional thing. And I wasn't going to apply for this position. And I thought, and I said, this is the best fit for Steve Wolf. I know how to get you out of the debt. You're never going to alleviate $8 million of road loans, but you're going to keep yourself from growing that amount. When I look through the state audits of the past 6 years and watching trends that I've seen with your village, you have to do things that haven't been done before. And I talked earlier to all of you that I reach out to different city managers, different people, and say, how do you confront these issues? Why reinvent the wheel? There's answers out there because someone has come across what we're in here. I drove every street now 7 different times in the last month. I did yesterday, every little road from Short Street to, because I'm detailing about, even though I don't know I'm gonna get this opportunity. I have a better handle on where we're at. Also, I have to be comfortable emotionally, but physically. I want to give you my very best. So I want the best ability to have my sleep to come to work, because I've been known to have to be sent home instead of Steve, where's Steve at after 5 o'clock on Friday night. I can only give that if I'm from a place of comfort, if you follow what I'm saying. So there's a state senator pushing a bill to close villages, the form of government completely. I was part of the fight 10 years ago, and you guys can reference the University of Toledo study, where the city of Centerville, right here locally, was using state representatives and state senators to close townships. We won the fight, and I was part of that fight. I don't think New Lebanon is in that position because you have to offer 5 critical services completely. And you're doing that successfully. But villages are not doing 5 of a list of, I believe it's 12. They're the state, if they pass the law and they have 81% approval in the Senate, it has not come to the House yet. There's a chance that we're up against stricter rules to survive as a village. And then financially, all the grants, everybody thinks, well, grants are easy. Grants are easy. Well, they're turning from 100% grant to co-share. Now, right now, the state co-shares road grants, and they give you percentages of that. But the problem we're getting into is it's 0 interest. They're not going to be able to continue that 0 interest on future projects. So I go back to just my example of the $8 million in roads. How are we going to get the rest of the roads? And they all need some attention, every one of them. How are we going to do that with a village of only, population of a little over 3,000? How are we going to get there versus the other communities in Ohio that we're fighting against? We have to tap every opportunity. I encourage council, whether I clicked or not, to join committees, because you get at the table and find out how this happens. When I left as trustee in December, it was the end of my term, I had to write out 19 resignations to committees that I was on. The biggest one I didn't want to let go because it was Small Village Township. It's called the Ohio Small Government Fund in Ohio, up at Columbus, meets once a year. It's restricted to 5,000 population or less. So the big boys downtown Montgomery County, the big cities, you compete against. And a lot of times us small area communities get 0.
So, in summary, are you willing to move to New Lebanon in order to be a municipal manager?
If it's a requirement, yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, Shannon Beavers, 130 Crowley.
Good evening. If I can just say one thing quickly, I appreciate you both being here. Pete, Mr. Wolf, it's nice to meet you. You're here because our last municipal manager was hired. There were a bunch of applications, and Mr. Marcus had forwarded council 4 resumes, let them look at it, and he said, hey, this is my recommendation, and they voted yes. There were no interviews, there were no questions, there were no meetings. So that's how the previous one was done. So I appreciate council. This is not required. It was not required for, Rob, all you had to do was meet with somebody, come to council, say, this is my recommendation, you guys vote yes or no, that's it. So to do this extra step is increasing the transparency of the forward momentum that we're trying to accomplish here, or at least that I envision or I see. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate you guys being here, and I apologize for any rudeness that you've experienced this evening. I would like to know, one basic question, what are your management styles? Both of you, so.
I'm definitely not a type A. I'm a type A when it comes to deadlines, type A to the rules, to the deck, and following guidelines and holding people accountable. But I'm in the area of building rapport. My employees sometimes may not like me about a decision I made, but at least they are fully explained why, not just do it. I told you to do it, I'm moving on. You're not gonna hold on to your employees or have much respect at all. So I guess I fall in one of the other three categories. The biggest thing is you've got to be a people person. And you've got to understand that those workers are coming in on a tough day. They've had a tough day at home. They're having a tough week. You got to find a way to make this their haven, but also get ultimate production out of them. The same thing goes with your business owners. You got to build the trust and meet with every one of them and get them to talk to you. Say, where's your struggles? Where's your problems? I'll give you a quick thing. I just ask people all the time where, I might be, where do you live? Well, my mom was in the hospital for an extended period of stay here recently, Miami Valley. And wouldn't you know it, her care nurse lives here. She grew up in Eaton. Her and her husband wanted to live closer to Dayton. She chose the small town, was what she told me. So a half hour later, I found out a lot of things about the fabric of what she liked as a resident. She knew there was turmoil up here, or she heard about it, but she goes, I don't have time to invest in that. So me taking that time and the personality goes a long way with gathering information for council to make informed decisions. But on not only that, it lets the community feel like they're closer to the gavel than pushed away. And that's how I manage.
I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. I think people person is important. It's not the word I had, but it was a good one. I get teased a little bit at work because I am a people person at work. I do talk a lot. I have to put in positions to do that, put in positions to do trainings in front of people, those types of things, because I'm not so much at home. When I'm out doing that and I get home, I'm not quiet. That's kind of who I am. But I think you can provide structure, that consistency and accountability and still be a people person, if that makes sense. It's a dynamic that has worked for me. It's a dynamic that has stayed pretty steady with me. Can I say that I've hired people and missed? Sure, I have. But I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to feel my gut, to do those interviews, to do that process and know that if I miss, it's on me. But I think people person is the right word. Again, I have the ability from department to department to provide structure, consistency, accountability. I'm not going to come in trying to rip people apart. It's just not my goal. If there was one feedback on an evaluation from me that is below, actually, that is average, it would be sometimes my flexibility with people. I'm too flexible and I sometimes do things myself, if that makes sense.
And then kind of my last thing, and I guess it's more of a statement of what everybody's gonna have their own opinion on what they're looking for, what they're wanting. And I think that even prior to this council, the previous council, even the one before, well, that council was there for a long time, but previous municipal managers, it always felt, and there's still a little bit for the public in this, there is some device, I mean, there's a division, a slight division. And even though I may not be able to totally agree with certain council members, and I may agree with somebody else more, and even with the public, it's very split. And I guess I'm wanting a reassurance from both of you that, that you would be able to commit to, kind of trying to unify the people, the council, like everybody kind of committing to moving forward and fixing things and doing things better. And not have it be, I just remember like Nicole Atkins was like the only sitting council member up here for a very long time. And it was a majority to a minority. I mean, it was literally 6-1, and now it's 4-3. Like you said, politics, you know, there's changeover. It's politics really when it comes down to it. But for us having such a small community, I'm really hoping that we can have a municipal manager though that, I don't want to say doesn't get involved in that, really, yeah, kind of doesn't really get involved in that, and would treat me the same as you would treat somebody else that is on the complete opposite spectrum of where I'm at. So I guess that's just kind of what I'm wanting is reassurance that you would both be able to commit to that.
No, I guess, you better, because if you're not transparent, you don't have integrity, you can't build that trust, and you can't figure out how to unify people, you're probably gonna fail. You're gonna fail, because it's a team, and it takes that in the right way. I don't know what to say. If you can't build that, you can't unify, it's gonna be a long, hard road. That doesn't mean you're not gonna have tough times, that doesn't mean you're not gonna disagree. You're gonna have things that you disagree on, you're gonna have things that you, see differently. But coming together, for the ultimate goal is what you hope for.
And then just to give you kind of an example, because he's more familiar with, so if I were to do a public records request, it would take months, if not, it would not be filled even at all, but then some people will get them within the hour. So that's kind of just an example to go off of.
Well, you complete? Okay. I mentioned to council here tonight that there may, you know, and I'll repeat myself to the previous interview. I'd have to look at the system to see where it's at. Because take public record requests, for instance. They come in and they're to be numbered. They are public record. And they're to be answered in a what they call an acceptable manner under the Ohio Revised Code. What that means is some information is more at hand, some aren't. But that acceptability is always up in the air. And in previous places I've been, there are times where before I had just gotten hired where they didn't answer them as a policy. And nobody challenged them. My end of it was to write a policy or update the policy they never followed and make it transparent. So we put it on the internet of who had put in a public record request, what it was, and that it was answered. That at least to let the public have an idea of what may have been delayed, answered. The other thing though is the education part of it. The public needs to know more of what their positions are. Not just they serve council. There's a political entity here, it's a government business. And there are certain things they're allowed to do and certain things they're not allowed to do, and sometimes it falls on the solicitor or the village, you know, council. Sometimes things are delayed for legal reasons, and that I can't speak for. But at least there's an accountability that if you ask something on a public records, it's seen by everyone. It is known that you put it in, and at least it's trying to build the rapport. Everything's not a perfect world. You can put all these programs in place. But the biggest thing to building this trust back includes other internal things that the community hasn't had. You've not had a full rewrite or a full look of your zoning code in about 30 years. It was written 30 years ago. Now, every year, your Board of Zoning appeal or your Board of Zoning updates the manual. It was written in about 1984. Things have changed for all of us.
We update it every year.
I understand that, but the overall rewrite. One of the things I mentioned in a previous interview was You need to do a comprehensive plan. All the communities around here have one or they're updating theirs, and a lot of them are 20, 30 years old. What are the visions of council? What are the visions of the community? What do you want? Because as council changes, as you mentioned, 1, 2, and 3 councils, and different management and financial struggles against it, the way of the land doesn't continue. The river doesn't flow. You start all over again. You need to do that here and let the public get their hands involved to build the future plan and map. And I think that, to begin with, will be huge on building rapport. Because everyone had a say so. Everyone had an opportunity to be involved, not just sitting back here and them up there. You're in a room and you're walking up, giving your ideas right next to the mayor. Now, Mayor, I didn't mean this in any negative way, but if you're gonna grow and you're gonna heal here, that'd be the first thing I'd start off with, besides putting out fires like not enough staff to take care of your day-to-day. Because those comprehensive plans can correct your financial, give you a roadmap for financial. It allows the fire chief to have their roadmap of what they want. It lets your police chief have their roadmap, the park roadmap. And then the internal operations, including like Day in the Park that was very successful this summer. All that gives you at least a plan. And I propose, whether I'm hired or not, you do that. Because you're gonna build rapport, but more than any other way that I know.
Thank you, guys. Good luck to both of you.
All right, thank you, Ken. Okay, before we adjourn for the evening, I'd like to thank Mr. Wolf and Mr. Sexton. Thank you guys both for your time and consideration throughout this process. I'd also like to thank the council members and the public for participating in this meeting. I'm excited about the direction of this community. I think tonight was the beginning of a positive move forward. And as we continue to build on the positive momentum we have seen in the last few months. Okay? I invite all of you to stick around after we adjourn to talk to the 2 candidates and ask any other questions you did not get to ask during the meeting. Okay? At this time, do I have a motion to adjourn this special meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Joy,
Yes.
Councilmember Mack,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Atkins,
Yes.
Mayor Nickerson.
Yes.
Councilmember Perkins,
Yes.
Councilmember Cooper.
Yes.
Okay, this special meeting is adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody. I really sincerely appreciate it. Yeah, appreciate it.